A single cough echoed across the crowded livestock auction, then another, then dozens more. Men who had spent their lives raising cattle stepped backward with fear written across their faces as weak calves stumbled, their ribs showing through dull coats, their eyes filled with exhaustion. Nobody wanted them. Nobody believed they would survive another week. Yet while everyone else walked away shaking their heads, one skinny black boy quietly reached into his pocket, counted 7 crumpled $1 bills, and made the purchase that would soon become the most unbelievable story the county had ever witnessed. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives, forgiveness can heal broken hearts, hope should never be abandoned, and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. 17-year-old Everett Coleman had never owned much more than a pair of worn work boots, a faded denim jacket that had belonged to his grandfather, and a stubborn determination that refused to disappear no matter how difficult life became. He lived with his grandmother, Ruth Coleman, on a tiny neglected farm just outside the small town of Millridge. Their old red barn leaned slightly to one side, the fences needed constant repair, and every dollar they earned disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Since Everett's parents had died in a highway accident when he was 8 years old, Ruth had raised him with quiet strength, teaching him that people measured wealth in the wrong things. She often reminded him that character outlived money, and compassion left a legacy no bank account could ever match. The county auction had become almost depressing that spring. Ranchers from every direction were trying to sell animals that had developed strange coughs, fevers, and weakness. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some blamed contaminated feed. Others suspected a new virus. Veterinarians warned everyone to separate sick animals immediately, but nobody truly understood what they were facing. Buyers refused to bid. Healthy-looking calves sold cheaply, while the sickest ones were practically abandoned. Everett watched 90 coughing calves packed tightly into one neglected pen. They looked frightened rather than dangerous. Their ears drooped, their breathing sounded rough, and several struggled to stand. Auction workers joked that someone would probably pay more for the fence than for the animals inside it. Laughter echoed through the yard, but Everett couldn't laugh. He saw frightened lives instead of worthless livestock. The auction manager sighed and announced that anyone willing to haul away the entire group could have them for $7 simply to clear the space. Nobody lifted a hand. Men stared at the ground. Others walked away toward healthier animals. Everett reached into his pocket without hesitation. 7 wrinkled bills landed on the wooden counter. The laughter stopped. Several ranchers stared at him with disbelief. Some whispered that the boy had finally lost his mind. One man even predicted the calves would all be dead before the weekend. Everett ignored every word. As the papers were signed, Ruth quietly placed a hand on his shoulder. She did not pretend the decision made financial sense, but she trusted the heart that had made it. Getting 90 sick calves home proved harder than buying them. Friends refused to lend trailers because they feared infection. After hours of asking, an elderly neighbor named Walter Briggs agreed to help. Walter had known Everett's grandfather decades earlier and believed the boy deserved encouragement instead of ridicule. Together they slowly transported every calf to the old farm, placing them in separate fenced sections while following every sanitation recommendation they could find. For the next several weeks, Everett hardly slept. Every sunrise began with cleaning water troughs, replacing bedding, disinfecting equipment, checking temperatures, and preparing carefully balanced feed. He read every veterinary guide available at the county library. Whenever he didn't understand something, he drove to the local clinic and asked respectful questions. The veterinarians noticed how seriously he listened. Instead of treating him like an inexperienced teenager, they began sharing practical advice that larger ranchers often ignored because they believed they already knew everything. Everett focused on simple things that many overlooked. Every calf received fresh water instead of stagnant supplies. Feeding equipment stayed clean. Crowded pens were divided into smaller groups. Sick animals were monitored individually rather than disappearing into large herds. Fresh air circulated through repaired barn windows, reducing damp conditions that encouraged illness. None of it seemed dramatic. Every improvement required exhausting labor instead of expensive machinery. The calves slowly responded. Not overnight. Not all at once. But one by one, coughing became less frequent. Weak legs grew steadier. Curious eyes began following Everett around the fields. Some even started running awkwardly through fresh grass during warm afternoons. Ruth smiled quietly every time she watched another calf regain its strength. She often said miracles sometimes looked exactly like ordinary people refusing to quit. Meanwhile, the illness spread across neighboring ranches with terrifying speed. Large operations that had ignored early warning signs found entire herds coughing within days. Animals shared crowded feeding stations. Equipment moved from one pasture to another without proper cleaning. Visitors unknowingly carried contamination between farms. Veterinarians worked from sunrise until evening trying desperately to slow the outbreak, but losses mounted daily. The county entered a state of heartbreak. Families who had built ranches over generations watched years of work disappear. Empty pastures replaced thriving herds. Auctions closed temporarily. Feed suppliers struggled. Truck drivers lost deliveries. Local businesses suffered because nearly everyone depended upon agriculture in one way or another. Then something impossible happened. Inspectors visiting Everett's modest farm expected disaster. Instead, they found 90 recovering calves with improving health records, organized quarantine practices, clean facilities, and remarkably low infection rates. Laboratory testing showed that while the calves had indeed been ill, careful management had limited additional spread and greatly improved recovery. Word traveled quickly. The same people who had laughed at Everett now drove to his farm asking questions. Instead of enjoying their embarrassment, Everett welcomed every visitor. He walked them through each pen, explained every cleaning routine, showed feeding schedules, described ventilation changes, and encouraged them to work together rather than blame one another. He never claimed to possess secret knowledge. He simply admitted that because he could not afford expensive solutions, he had concentrated on doing small things consistently every single day. County officials invited veterinarians to observe the farm more closely. Several practices Everett had followed aligned with recommendations that many larger operations had neglected during busy seasons. His example encouraged dozens of ranchers to improve sanitation, reduce overcrowding where possible, monitor animals more carefully, and seek veterinary assistance earlier instead of waiting for conditions to worsen. Recovery across the county remained slow, but hope returned. One afternoon, Everett visited the same auction yard where people had mocked him months earlier. This time no one laughed. Men removed their hats as he walked by. Some thanked him quietly. Others admitted pride had prevented them from listening sooner. Everett accepted every apology with humility because he understood how fear often disguised itself as arrogance. Walter Briggs later confessed that watching Everett had reminded him of something his own father once said: "The strongest fences protected land, but the strongest hearts protected communities." Everett never forgot those words. As summer advanced, the 90 calves transformed into healthy young cattle. Their coats shined under bright afternoon sunlight. Their weight improved dramatically. Visitors often stood silently at the pasture fence, amazed that the weakest animals in the county had become symbols of perseverance. One rancher named Grant Mercer carried the heaviest burden. He had openly ridiculed Everett at the auction, calling the purchase foolish and predicting complete failure. During the outbreak, Grant lost nearly his entire herd. Financially broken and emotionally exhausted, he finally drove to Everett's farm expecting resentment. Instead, Everett spent the entire afternoon helping Grant repair damaged fencing and discussing ways to rebuild responsibly. There were no harsh reminders about past insults. No desire for revenge. Only practical help offered with sincere compassion. Grant later admitted that losing cattle had hurt, but discovering kindness where he deserved bitterness changed his life far more deeply. As autumn approached, the county organized a daytime agricultural fair celebrating resilience after one of the hardest seasons anyone could remember. Everett never expected recognition, yet community leaders invited him onto a simple wooden stage before hundreds of neighbors. The applause lasted far longer than he felt comfortable receiving. An elderly veterinarian explained that Everett had not performed magic. He had demonstrated discipline, patience, humility, and respect for every life placed in his care. Those qualities inspired better farming practices throughout the region and reminded everyone that wisdom could come from unexpected places. Everett looked across the crowd and saw ranchers who had once doubted him now standing beside families they had helped during the difficult months. The county had learned something larger than disease management. It had rediscovered compassion. Before this story comes to its close, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us about a time when kindness, perseverance, or forgiveness changed someone's life, or your own. Your words may encourage another person who needs hope today. Years later, people still spoke about the spring when fear swept across every pasture and one determined black boy bought 90 coughing calves for only $7. They remembered how fever devastated herds for miles while those forgotten animals survived through relentless care, patience, and love. But more importantly, they remembered that Everett Coleman never allowed success to harden his heart. He proved that true victory is not measured by what we save for ourselves but by how willingly we help others rise after they have fallen. The calves became healthy, struggling ranches slowly recovered, old divisions within the community healed, and one small farm that had once seemed destined for failure became a place where hope grew stronger than fear. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that compassion often begins with a single courageous decision, and sometimes the smallest act of faith can inspire an entire community to believe again.